All right, folks. Welcome. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to On This Hill. We are the podcast of Church on the Hill here in Turner and Kaiser. Speaking of Turner and Kaiser, we're one church, two locations, and your location is?
I am the Kaiser campus youth pastor.
Kaiser campus.
Kaiser, to answer your question.
Yeah, Kaiser campus youth pastor. Yeah. And how long?
Since last fall, so fall of 2022.
All right, so that's Mason. Mason is been with us for a while now, and then stepped into the role of youth pastoring at Kaiser. How's that going?
It's been good. It's been really fun. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. I mean, starting because of Kaiser campus getting shut down, it was kind of like we were starting fresh, and so it was a fun task to build a team and kind of relaunch a youth ministry up in Kaiser. Yeah. And it's been so fun, just growing leaders, growing kids, and just to see the difference of where we started and where we're at now. It's been so fun.
Who else is on that team that ministers out of Kaiser?
We have 12.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I'm sorry. I meant not necessarily the youth
pastoral
team.
staff.
Pastoral staff. Yeah. So you've got Alfonso.
Yeah. Jimmy and Diana.
Joy.
And then Nicole, we add her into some meetings.
Yeah. But Nicole definitely kind of bounces back and forth, but she kind of makes that home base because that's where the room is where young adults can meet. Yeah. So we have a little bit in common. I mean, not a ton.
Thanks.
We're both athletic specimens.
Thanks.
That was a long pause.
I was just trying to think of it was like, did you mean it for me? Did you mean it for you? Was it both of us? Like, where was the line? I wasn't really tracking there. So my apologies. Are you saying I am and you're not?
I
or
took
we
that
both
to
are,
mean
or
that you don't believe that I'm an athletic specimen.
I meant, okay.
I'm not.
All right.
No, actually, I think what we have in common is a little bit of where we grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up in Umatilla. You grew up around Yakima.
That's actually not true.
Sorry, you went to school in Yakima.
I went to school in Yakima. Western Washington.
That's what we have in common is where you went to school and where I lived. And I've often felt like Yakima is like what Umatilla would be if it grew up.
Like
trouble.
Trouble? Yeah, I was going to say, cracked pavement and...
Yes.
You feel scared in the night?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, but
so you're saying they're still in like the infant stage of like...
Yeah, we're getting there.
Still playing at the playground and things like that. Okay.
But no, sorry. I'm being silly today. I apologize.
It's all good.
But you grew up though in a pretty cool family is my understanding of your testimony. So tell me about your family. What that looked like. Yeah.
So I grew up in a Christian home. My parents became Christians right before they got married. And so my mom got baptized. This was like a couple months before they got married. My mom got baptized. And my dad found out later that day that she got baptized. And was like, what?
Really?
I want to get baptized too. So he later on a separate occasion, or on a separate, same day, later, separate tub.
Seriously?
When got baptized, yeah.
In the same day?
My parents got baptized on the same day.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool part of their story. So I was raised in kind of the wake of that, of two parents trying to figure out what it looked like to raise kids in a Christian home.
How many kids?
Well, started with one, and then there was me.
Yeah.
So I have an older sister. And then there was me, and then I have two younger siblings that are biological. Yeah. And then when I was I was a freshman in high school when we started doing foster care. Okay. And so we brought one little 12-day-old baby into our home, and we were like, okay, this is going to be just for the weekend.
Yeah. That's how they get you. That's how they get you.
And he is now 11, and we've adopted him, and he's ours.
That's a long weekend.
His name's Tristan. It was a very long weekend.
Yeah. Tristan.
Yeah. Yep. So that was Tristan. He was our first. Yeah. I think 6 months after that, we got Wyatt, and he was just over a year. And then we found out that Wyatt had a little sister. Oh, yeah. And so then little sister comes, and then we find out that mom's pregnant again. Wow. And so then there came Eli. So
wow.
Yeah. So we ended up adopting all four of them from foster care.
And three of them are siblings.
Three of them are siblings.
I mean, by blood siblings. Yep. But now all of them are siblings because they've all been brought in the same family. That's really cool. Yep. That's the other thing I was going to say we have in common, although I didn't grow up with it. So I don't really know what it's like from the perspective of the kid who's at home and suddenly more kids start showing up.
Yep.
Because that's what I've done to my children, my girls, but they were 100% completely, on board. Matter of fact, they were the ones who were pushing us to say, like, we should foster. Cool. And I'm like, you're little kids. You don't even know what you're talking about. You don't even know what that really means. How engaged were you and your sister, your older sister, like in the process of all this?
In making the decision,
or just knowing about it? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, I think knowing that we were going to foster, I think my sister was a little more hesitant. I was like, you know what? At this point, I had made the decision to follow Jesus, and I was like, we do what Jesus says.
All right.
And so if God's telling you, we're doing it. And so.
And you were how old then?
I was 14.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You work with 14-year-olds now.
Yeah, I do.
I don't know that they're known for being at the peak of their selflessness necessarily.
No.
I mean, I'm not picking on 14-year-olds at all, but I think we've all been 14, unless you're not that age yet. Yeah. We've all been 14, and I don't think I was my most selfless at that time. Yeah. So that's pretty cool that you were like, yeah, bring them in.
Yeah, and I was selfless from then on out, right? Like I never had second thoughts, never second guessed it. No, I made it all about me, absolutely. But no, I made the decision, or I made the decision. I decided if you guys want to do this, I'm in. And so after that, I wasn't so excited about it once they actually came, and I realized, the attention isn't all on me.
Oh, right.
My world that revolves around me isn't about me anymore. And so then that's where my 14-year-oldness kicked in.
Yeah. And you said the first one was how many days old?
He was 12 days old.
12 days old.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, because that takes all the attention.
Yeah.
To have a baby means like, well, you are now our life. You are now what we're doing. Like if the question is like, hey, what are you doing tonight? If you have a baby, like, this is what we're doing. Yeah. We have a baby. We're doing baby things. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really cool.
Yeah. So there I was, an athlete. Yeah. It was a baseball player. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go to practice, go to my games, hang out with my friends. And then it's like, oh, hey, will you come babysit on a Thursday night, Friday night, all day Saturday? And it's like, woof. We got roped into that family responsibility, and that was good. I grew up a lot, but also was difficult for a 14-year-old.
So tell us about that other side of your life, the athletic side of your life, because we didn't mention that one part of your ministry is with Church on the Hill. Yeah. And very much connected to the other part, but what's the other part of the ministry that you do, and how did you come into that?
Yeah, I'm also on staff with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Yeah. So FCA. My uncle helped run the FCA at my high school growing up. And so
you grew up with it a little bit.
Yeah. So he helped run some basketball camps, and I was a part of those growing up, and then was a part of the huddle when I was in high school. And so
tell people what the huddle is.
The huddle. A huddle is basically an athlete Bible study where we do three things. We engage people relationally, we equip them spiritually, and we empower disciples to make disciples. Yeah. So,
and you're doing that now.
Yep. Yeah. So now I'm on staff with FCA, and my role is to train a core group of disciples. Yep. We call it a SALT team, a student athlete leadership team. And so I train 6 to 8 kids that are out of high school, and then they run the huddle at the school. And so it's a student-led Bible study. Okay. So I do that at Cascade High School, McNary High School, and Corbin University.
So they run the huddle. Are you at the huddle?
I currently McNary, I'm there just about every week. Okay. Cascade every other week. Okay. And Corbin not a ton, but my role is mainly in training the students.
That's awesome. Yeah. Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And how long have they been around?
They've been around a long time, since mid-1900s. Yeah.
And is that where you met Taylor? Is that where that started?
That is where I met Taylor, actually. Yes. Yeah. So it's funny, he was in my role. So he recruited me to be on his student athlete leadership team. Yeah. And so he was the crazy guy that was like, hey, I got your number from the person in Yakima. Hey, come to coffee with me. He recruits me to be a part of this leadership team. Right. And then I help run the Corbin huddle. And then he didn't introduce me to Church on the Hill. I was attending Church on the Hill. But then he introduced me to the FCA internship. Yeah. And that's how I became an intern with FCA, then came on staff. Yeah. Largely because of
definitely one of the things I love about Taylor, like, you and Micah and so many young people and others, he's constantly just bringing people. Yep. And I don't mean to Church on the Hill, I mean to Christ. He's just bringing people to ministry, bringing people to Christ. Yep. Like he's always recruiting. which I absolutely love about it.
Yeah.
And was giving you a hard time because he also outsold you in Christmas wreaths this year.
He did. Yes, I'll admit it.
Yeah,
South
folks, we sell
Campus.
Christmas wreaths. We're really not a church. We're a front for a Christmas wreath operation. No, the Christmas wreath sales go to sponsor families at Christmas time that could use a little bit of extra help. And so for the last several years, our young people have been selling Christmas wreaths, and all that money then they use to get things, to buy things to support families. And this side of town, if people don't know Church on the Hill, this side of town is a bigger church right now. That might not always be the same, but so of course he had a bigger pool to sell from. But
so it was a jab.
It was
an unfair jab.
Yep.
So
all right, enough about you.
Okay.
No, I don't know why you had to make it all about you today.
Sorry, it's just something that I do.
I'm teasing, of course. I had a bunch of questions for you, but right now we just finished a sermon series on 1st, 2nd Timothy that we call Unwavering. But now we've got 2 Sundays before Christmas. This podcast is going to come out after this Sunday, so listening to this, you'll have 1 Sunday before the Christmas Eve service. And so we're going to take these 2 Sundays and talk about the incarnation, talk about the birth of Christ. And so this Sunday, we kind of drilled down on that, on the humility of God and how unique that is in all of history. Even if you just look at all the myths of history and say, okay, what do saviors look like? They don't look like this. Yeah. This isn't what they look like. Yeah. It's so unique of a story. Now, there are other stories. Do you read fiction? Are you a fiction fan?
I read some fiction.
You read some fiction? Yep. What's your genre?
So I haven't read a ton of fiction since I got out of school. So,
okay.
I mean, general fiction, sci-fi, I don't know.
Okay, all right. Just curious.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are reading young adult fiction right now. I don't know what started that, if that was Harry Potter or the Hunger Games, or if it's just always been a thing, but I feel like it really blew up in the last, especially with millennials. Yeah. From millennials on, I feel like it really blew up, so that adults are still reading young adult fiction. And in the cycle of young adult fiction, there's this coming of age story. Mm. And so that's not so unusual to have a Harry Potter type figure who is, sad and of low esteem that then comes, to prominence. Yeah. But there's nothing like I think Joseph Campbell is the one who talked about, right? The hero's journey.
I know Joseph Campbell.
Yeah,
I don't know the
Joseph Campbell's the hero's journey. He talks about this cycle of what that looks like. But they almost always in that cycle, you can look up the hero's journey if you want to, with Joseph Campbell. They come around to basically they're a king. But their kingship and Jesus' kingship look completely different. They're conquering king. They conquer with a sword. There's, blood and armor and horses involved. And
correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that what the Jews expected?
Yeah. Yeah, that is exactly what they expect. So to have the incarnation look like this humble baby born to nobodies. Yeah. No one was expecting great things from these two. Well, it wasn't. Spoiler alert, if you haven't read the Bible, it wasn't Joseph's son.
You are not the father. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, he had a Jerry Springer moment. Or he found out,
I'm sorry. It was by an angel. Another spoiler alert. So that's credible source.
I appreciate the reference. And so I don't know, do you have thoughts about this? Like when you think about the implications of the humility of God being born.
Yeah.
And into not just a small family, but a small nation, a small city, a small everything. Yeah. And then walking out that humility, not constantly walking around, going, you don't know who I really am.
I think that's what we expect based on fiction, based on even when you read the Old Testament, it talks a lot about the prophecies of the coming Messiah. Right. And they picture this ruler, this prophet, this king, this amazing person like Moses, this amazing person like King David. And it's like, this is who it's going to be, but better. Yeah. Right. And so, the expectations were that this would be some dominant, from a amazing family, maybe from the line of David,
from the line of David,
But here he comes, and he's a baby in swaddling cloth, lying in a manger. And
the genealogy is important. I mean, Matthew points out the genealogy. Other places in the Gospels point out the genealogy. But still, from these two, no one is expecting, well, this is clearly where it's going to come from these two at this time in this place.
Yeah, and I mean, something that we talk about is like the upside down kingdom. I know the Bible Project talks about that a lot. But just the idea of that this was our expectation, of that there would be a king, a ruler, some amazing kingdom, and, this amazing movement that would lead to the overthrow of Rome, and it would be amazing. And it starts, it does happen. All of the prophecies are true, but the way it comes about is very upside down, and so that's just something I wanted to bring up.
It was an upside. Like I don't know who came up with that. Maybe it was the Bible Project. I don't remember who said that first, but that idea that it's upside down is, I think, the central thing. The central thing to take away from is the way he conquered, because he did conquer. He did. All of those prophecies came true. It's not that you look at the scripture and go, "Oh, I guess none of that was right. I guess everyone was wrong about the Messiah." No, it's that the way he did it was so shocking and surprising and counterintuitive to the way we do things, which makes sense if we're sinful people. Then the way we would think to conquer is going to look very different than the way of a sinless Savior. We sometimes around here we'll talk about hard power and soft power. Hard power and soft power. Hard power takes, right? Hard power says, because I am bigger than you, this is now mine. Might makes right. And he is the mightiest being in the universe and chose not to use his power that way. Where soft power influences, we were just talking about babies. He has the power. It sounds crazy to me. It still sounds crazy to me, and I believe it. He had the power of a baby, which is like no power, right? Like, I can take any baby in an arm wrestling competition. You put a baby across the table from me, and I'll win every time. I mean, I'll go all the way up to toddlers. And you line up kids, and one after the other.
Take down any 6-year-old out there.
I'll smash him.
He's calling you out. Any 6-year-old that thinks you can beat Jason in an arm wrestling competition.
I didn't go all the way up to 6. Okay,
I said 4 and under.
4 and under.
4 and under. If you think you can take Jason, call him out.
I'll smash him.
Send an email to info@cothcommunity.com.
One after the other. Even play with them, right?
Sign your kid up for the arm wrestling competition.
Let him think, like, oh, you're winning. Oh, just kidding. Wham! Why am I talking like this?
I have no idea.
I know. Because, however, babies still beat me, but not in that kind of power competition, because he doesn't use that kind of power. He uses a completely different kind of power. When my baby was born, when my first is adopted. So when she came into our home, she came in at 8 months old, still a baby. And we had all of the power. She had none of the power. Right? So she's 100% vulnerable, 100% lost in a way, because, she's come and adopted into a family. We're the first white people she's ever seen. We're living in China at the time. And she was just terrified that first day. Like, she was crying at just 8 months old. I don't even know if terrified is the right word, just distraught. She's being, from her point of view, she's being taken away from everything she knew, from the orphanage, from the nurse, and handed to strangers. And I'd never seen it through those eyes before. And now I'm holding her, and immediately my heart is completely won over. Like, she wins. Now she always wins. So I'm holding her, and I'm thinking, I'll die for you. I'll do anything for you. I will give my life for you. And that's how, you're not a dad yet, but you've seen it from this perspective of fostering and bringing someone in. Same thing, obviously, when our biological daughter was born, Faith, they're almost exactly a year apart. They both have September birthdays. And when she was born, and I'm there standing by my wife's side as she does the hard part, and I'm just, loving and waiting, and as soon as they put her in our arms, again, that same exact feeling floods your body. You're like, oh, I would give anything for you. I will do anything for you. And it seems like that's how Jesus wins, that he could have won He could have been incarnate and then used his power to conquer, but instead he used it to conquer our hearts, like to win us over. And so some people were won over. Some people were like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. This Jesus and what he does and what he says. Like, I'll follow you anywhere. I'll do anything. I'll die for you. And others weren't won over yet. Yeah. They weren't won over yet. And that part of the incarnation blows my mind, that he chose to use a completely different power system than we use. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, he could have demanded our love.
He could have demanded our love.
He could have demanded our respect. He could have demanded fall in line. But he says, no, I give you the choice. That's, I think we see the love of God in that, of the free will choice.
Yeah.
And even, not convincing us, not coercing us, but showing us why, showing us how, and then even setting the example as he got older.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you witnessed this. You probably have witnessed this. As a pastor, a lot of times I'll see someone like a big tough guy who's just had a baby, and they're like, they're just not tough anymore. Yeah. I mean, they are tough, but not with the baby, especially baby girls. Yep. All babies, but especially baby girls. Yep. Like, you have that baby girl and you're like, suddenly they're crying for the first time ever, and they're like, and the same, I'll see the same thing with women, both rebels, men, women, both rebels, both sinners, women that'll, like, I hate authority. I do my own thing. I won't, whatever. And then a baby comes into their life, and suddenly all of their life comes underneath the baby and says, everything I do for her. Everything I do for this baby. Everything I do. And I think that's when Jesus is born in us, when we are born again. It's that kind of, it's a different kind of power. It's falling in love.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. I'm not an amen myself.
Amen. Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, and just the humility. I don't know. Have you ever sat down and thought about that? Like, God in a baby? Like, how does that even work?
God in a bod. That's my favorite definition of the incarnation. God in a bod.
Only a youth pastor could bring that.
Come on.
God in a bod.
God in a bod.
I'm afraid, I really want to make that into a t-shirt, but I'm afraid people would think
God bod.
I was bragging. Whoever wore it would be bragging, like, God in a bod.
Yep.
But I absolutely love it. Thank you for introducing that phrase to me.
I got you.
Yeah, but how do you fit God
into
a baby?
Yeah, I think that was one of the main things as I was reflecting on this just idea of the incarnation is like, who is God? What does it mean for God to be God? What does it mean for man to be man? And how can those two things collide? Yeah. How can those two things come together? I mean, like, the first thing I think of when I think of God is his holiness.
Yes.
God is absolutely perfectly holy.
Yeah.
Anything that is sinful, anything that's defiled, anything cannot come near his presence.
Right.
And yet he comes into man. He comes into flesh, right? And flesh has this connotation of sinfulness.
Right.
It has this connotation of brokenness, of fallenness, and he takes this flesh and redeems it. And so God, the ultimate one who sits on the throne, the one who deserves all honor and glory and praise, the one who's so set apart, comes so close. He humbles himself to the point where he comes into this body, the one who was not constricted, wasn't. He was everywhere, always, all at once. Jesus was spirit before he chose to humbly come into a body.
Yeah.
Right?
Someone said he didn't empty himself of his deity.
Yeah.
He kept 100% of his deity, but he did empty himself of his glory. Because we can't come before... Moses just came to the outskirts of God's glory and walked away with a shiny face and had to put a veil over and nearly kill him. So he purposefully let go of some of his glory. That's Philippians 2.
Yeah.
That he humbled himself to become a servant even. Yeah. That is, just in glory is a funny word that we don't use so much outside of Christianity, to be honest. We use it a little bit, but not a lot. But if you think about, like any person has a certain amount of dignity, right? And I think that's not perfectly analogous to glory, but it's close. And he had to let go of some of that dignity because the Son of God God made flesh, a deity, uses the facilities, I don't know how nice way to say this, in first century, Palestine, and walks on dusty road and has dirty feet that need to be washed and has, I'm sure, at the end of a long day, body odor, and just the things that are human are us, and that he, how humble that he took on any of those attributes of ours, and did it sinlessly.
Yeah. And it was love that drove him to that, right? Like,
right.
When I think about why would God, who's all powerful, all loving, why would he want to humble himself in that way?
Yeah.
And it was love. It was a love drove him to that. It was the desire for restoration of relationship. And
right, because isn't that part of the whole story? Like, in the garden, he was approachable.
Yeah.
Very approachable. Walked in the garden with God. Adam and Eve walked in the garden with God. And then sin causes separation, and there's this barrier, and they're outside of the place where you can meet with God.
Yeah.
They no longer have the place where you can meet with God. Yeah. And so the tabernacle and the temple become a place where you can meet with God, but not everyone, not all the time. Yeah. Like, there has to be sacrifices made, there has to be atonement for sin, and only the holiest priest can go in at certain special times into the presence of God. And then in Jesus, he becomes 100% approachable, like everyone. Mm-hmm. Yeah. People would just walk up and touch him. I don't know about you, but I don't. Do you love hugs and touches?
I do, actually.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. You're one of those.
I'm a big hugger.
You're one of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I hate to say this on here because I want people to feel like that you can give me a hug.
Jason's not approachable.
You can give me a hug. You can do it if you want to. I'm not someone who just necessarily feel like I need it all the time. Yeah. We call love languages sometimes, right? That's one of the ways we talk about it. My wife has a love language of affection. Physical touch. It means a lot to her to have affection. And so I get a lot of affection at home, and I give a lot of affection at home. Yeah. So I feel my tank is really full. I don't feel like I have to go around looking for hugs and touch and attention. Yeah. So I just say that to say, go ahead.
Was Jesus a hugger? Was Jesus a physical touch guy?
According to John, he was.
When? Where? What?
According to John, I'm not saying John ever said this, but he laid on him, right? John was like leaning on his chest.
Read my Bible. Okay.
Yeah, John was like the one who Jesus loved. That's the way he described himself. The one who Jesus loved was laying on Jesus' chest during the Last Supper, and he's the one that asks Jesus, "Who's going to betray you?" Because other people are like, "Well, you're already laying on him. You ask him." And he was like reclined with his head on his chest. So he must not have hated it because
Jesus snuggles.
he snuggled John. He allowed John to. I don't know what that looked like. But
just kicking with the bros.
Taylor and I were just saying,
Jesus and 12 guys.
John probably made people uncomfortable with how much he loved Jesus, right? Anyways, all that to say, he's so approachable that people would just walk up and go, "I'm just going to touch hem. I'm just going to touch his clothes. I'm just going to feel him."
Do you think it was the physical touch element that drove that to be, or was it just the knowledge of his deity of like, oh, if I could only touch God.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's
maybe it's both. Maybe that like God was approachable because he was in human flesh, but also like, if only.
But just think about the way our celebrities behave now.
Totally.
They have a retinue of people around them to keep people from touching them, to keep people from getting close, because that close means vulnerable. If you can, like, that's why our president has Secret Service people around them. Right?
Yeah.
If Secret Service, I don't know if we can talk about this.
I don't think we can. We're going to move on.
Okay. Yep. They have Secret Service people around them to keep people from getting close, because if you can get close to someone, then they're vulnerable to you. Yeah. And I guess that part is really blowing my mind right now, this Christmas, as I think about it. Like, he was approachable, so he was vulnerable. Yeah. If he's touchable, then he's hurtable. That's not a real word, but I'm going to use it. Yeah. I don't think.
Just roll with it.
He's killable.
Yeah.
He's and the part that really blows my mind is
torturable.
He's torturable. Yeah. He's judgeable. Like, he can be judged. Yeah. Like, Job is one of the earliest written books in the Bible. And Job has an ongoing conversation with his friends that eventually turns into a conversation with God, where he's arguing his case and saying, if I had a judge between me and God, I would like that because I feel like I've been done wrong and like I don't deserve this. And in Jesus, he actually became judgeable, and we judged him and found him guilty of what?
Saying that he was God.
And killed him.
Yeah.
That's unreal to me.
Yeah. And I think that shows like the responses to holiness, right? Like in my mind, as you're saying that, I'm thinking John responded one way.
Yeah.
The others who judged him a different way responded this way, right? So the Pharisees and John, response to holiness can be, I love you, I want more of you, I want to come closer, or get away from me.
Right.
Right. And we see that in the prophet Isaiah of, I'm a man of unclean lips.
Yeah.
Right. And, get away from me for I'm an unclean man. Was it
Peter
that said that?
Peter said that in the boat after seeing Jesus' miracle and realizing I'm in the boat with God.
Yeah.
He fell on his knees and said, I'm unclean, I'm a sinner, we can't be around each other.
Yeah, but that was the response of a softened heart rather than a hardened heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what the point there is, that when the holiness, the holy comes in the person of Jesus, people respond in two very different ways of their hearts are softened or their hearts are hardened.
Yeah. So we probably need to wrap this up. So let's talk about, as we close here, what does this mean to church? What are the implications? I'm sorry, I'm just coming up with this question right now, so I didn't prepare you for this at all. What are the implications of the incarnation to the church? How should we be like Christ in this? If we are Christians and called to be Christ-like, the thing that comes to mind is a quote I actually wrote down here. Hudson Taylor said, "The missionary spirit is the spirit of Jesus, the spirit of incarnation, the spirit of the cross." Hudson Taylor being the famous missionary to China in a time when that was a very challenging thing to do. How does the implication of the incarnation affect the way the church should act and behave regularly?
Yeah. The verse that come to mind is 1 Corinthians 9, 19 through 22. For though I'm free from all, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. To the Jews I became as a Jew, in order to win Jews. To those under the law I became as one under the law, though not being myself under the law, that I might win those under the law. To those outside the law I became as one outside the law. Skip ahead. To the weak I became weak.
Yeah.
I have become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. And so I think
that is a perfect answer, by the way. Great job just pulling that out immediately.
The word of the Lord.
I don't want to make you proud.
No, but I think what was our greatest need? What did Jesus do? Jesus saw us. He saw a need. One of my favorite definitions of the word servant is, it says, "For though I'm free from all, I've made myself a servant to all." Jesus was a servant. Jesus came as a servant. One of my favorite definitions of the word servant is seeing a need and assuming personal responsibility to meet that need.
Yeah.
Seeing a need and assuming personal responsibility to meet that need. And God saw our need. He saw we chose a different way. We chose to absolutely rebel against his cosmic authority. And we chose to do that, and we chose our own way, and there's no way that we could on our own bring ourselves back to God. There's no way we could restore our relationship. There's no way we could make ourselves holy.
We needed rescue. Rescue means I can't help
Yeah.
myself. I need to be rescued.
Yeah, and so to humans, he became human.
Yeah.
And I think that, so what does that look like for the church?
Yeah.
To humans, we become human. To Jews, we become Jews. To the weak, we become weak. And I think for though I'm free from all, I have made myself a servant to all. So to the church, to
a middle schooler?
To a middle schooler.
How do you become like a middle schooler? And because, this is a great question. Honestly, I'm telling myself it's a great question. Hey, Jason, this is a great question. But honestly, I think a lot of churches fall down here. And they think, if you want to minister to middle schoolers, you better get an adult who's a middle schooler, really. and we miss something. We yes, you need to become like them, but you're trying to also the incarnation, makes us like him.
Yeah.
And so how do you do both? How do you become like a middle schooler, but also have a middle schooler become like Christ?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the servant of seeing their needs,
Yeah.
right? Seeing what are middle schoolers' ultimate, deepest needs.
Yeah.
And someone said to me the other day, the difference between a middle schooler and a high schooler is that middle schoolers just want to be loved no matter what. High schoolers want to be loved for who they truly are.
Ooh.
The only issue is they have no idea who the heck they actually are.
Yeah.
And so what does that look
really
like?
good.
So I bring that up of middle school and high school. There's a huge difference in the ministries of middle school. It's love, 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 right?
Yeah.
You need to love them. You need to engage them relationally.
Right.
Right. You need to see them for who they are, love them. And then once they feel loved and accepted, they invite you into their world to be equipped spiritually and be empowered to be a disciple who makes disciples. But then for high schoolers, it's love me for who I am.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means we have to actually model authenticity. We have to model vulnerability. And the coolest thing I've seen with high schoolers is when they see Mason is Mason, he's not trying to be something that he's not. And that's, I think, where in this verse we can kind of be like, oh, I need to be someone who I'm not. No, like Paul was a Jew. Paul had probably felt weak at some point. Paul was under the law, right? And so he wasn't being anything that he wasn't.
Yes.
And so for me, what does it look like for me to be vulnerable in who I am and be a model for these high schoolers, engage them relationally, invite them to be equipped spiritually?
That's awesome. You're blowing my mind. I've never realized that particular difference between middle schoolers and high schoolers. And I think maybe the average person, maybe even the average parent, is surprised by those stages of life. I know I was surprised when my daughters became middle schoolers.
That's why I know the answer is because I don't have a middle school. High school, that's when it gets all cut and dry. So
that little bit of insight actually helps a lot. And then also I was thinking, like, your parents became incarnational when they said, this baby's problems are going to be my problems.
Yeah.
This baby's need is going to be my responsibility.
Yeah, seeing a need and taking responsibility.
Yeah, I'll take responsibility for this.
It's really easy to look at the foster care system and say, man, that's messed up.
Yes.
Someone ought to do something. Laws ought to be changed, things like that. But what does it look like for us to be incarnational and to put on the cloak of a servant, to put the towel over your arm and say, hey, you know what, I have something to offer. I have something to offer.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So what do you have to offer?
Yeah,
it's funny. I asked the parents of my middle schoolers and high schoolers that just the other week. Had all of them in for a Thanksgiving meal all together, kids and the families. Yeah. And I said, hey, we're a family here. Yeah. We all have gifts. What's your gift? Yeah. What can you? What do you have to offer? We had one parent who runs a karate studio.
You were there. I was there.
You were there. Yeah, last week.
I was there on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually,
what's your perspective?
I invited myself to youth, and I asked if I could come, and they said,
I said, be careful.
These
kids are going to be equipped.
Yeah, they graciously said yes. And
very high.
When I get there, when I walk in the room, I'm hearing screams and yells.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm hearing, yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And they were teaching karate before the worship and before the lesson. Yeah. And I was so impressed. Honestly, I was so impressed by him. Shout out to, know the name of his studio?
I don't know the studio. Okay. No, but it's Master Clues.
Master Clues.
Carson Clues was who came. So thank you, Carson, if you're watching this.
I was so impressed by his ability to line up a bunch of kids who I don't think came necessarily thinking, like, let's do karate tonight. And be real. You can feel like, I don't want to look silly. Yeah. Almost all of them were like, I don't care if I look silly. They were just going for it. Yeah. And I've got some great video also, especially of Matthew, who was not a kid.
The leader.
One of the leaders.
The leader was going hard.
Yeah, doing a crane kick, which is beautiful.
Yeah, but Carson, he said, hey, here's the gift that I have to offer. Yep. Right. Here's something I can do. Here's something I can offer to the body. Yeah. So he said, hey, a need for you might be entertaining kids. Mm-hmm. A need might be to give them a lesson about what karate has to do with the gospel, right? And he did that really well.
He did that so good.
Yeah, it was so good.
I was super impressed. Yeah.
But he offered the gifts that he had.
Yep. Well, okay. We probably better wrap up here. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. This was fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the ministry that you're doing at Kaiser with our youth. It's really a pioneering work right now, but when you go, it doesn't feel like pioneering. I mean, from an outside perspective of just visiting something that I'm not a regular part of, it doesn't feel like this just got started. Yeah. They're ironing out the wrinkles. It feels like an amazing group of young people and adults who are loving on kids and ministering to them.
Yeah, and that's shout out to my dream team.
Yeah.
My youth leaders. Thank you so much.
Yep.
That's
they're awesome.
Large in part because of you guys. So thank you.
So, all right. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for checking us out and being here with us. I just want to encourage you, if this word of being incarnational, if it's hitting at all, if you're then it can't just be a concept we think about Jesus. It has to be, how can I bring this to bear on the hurts of the world? He said he was meek and lowly. Is that how his church would be described? Approachable. Would they be approachable, meek and lowly? The burden that we lay on people, is it heavy or is it light? Does it lift people or does it crush people? So hopefully here at Church in the Hill, we want to be the community that lifts, the community that is approachable and engages with the gospel. So, all right, bless you guys. Hope to see you on Sunday. That's where the real stuff happens, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.